everybody, and welcome to the Independent Author Podcast. I'm Tom Kranz, your host. This is a special, very short edition of the Independent Author with really one objective, and that is to let you know that this podcast is going to be changing names and kind of changing its focus starting with the next episode. For the last 2 years, I've been doing the Independent Author Podcast and focusing on writers like myself who are not attached to an agent or a publisher, but who have stories to tell and things to say in novels and nonfiction books. And I've met and interviewed some really great people, some very talented authors who I think wouldn't have gotten exposure otherwise without either being on this show or being in other venues that celebrate the independent author. But I've come to realize that I'd like to expand the scope of this podcast to some authors who are traditionally published, but who have interesting stories on how they came to become writers and how they execute their art along with their day-to-day lives, which can be a challenge. And I also would like to interview people who are musicians and who are artists, who paint on easels, and do acrylics and watercolors, and musicians who are self-taught or who, play in garage bands that are maybe a notch or two above just kind of hanging out and picking out random chords. So I'm going to be looking for those folks. I already have some good ideas of some artists that I have in mind, people from current and past lives of mine. And I think you're going to find them interesting. Talent and creativity lurks everywhere. It lurks under the covers. It lurks behind closed doors. It can even lurk behind closed minds if we can learn to open our minds and kind of see creativity for what it is and not for what we think it should be. And that includes, our own picture of who we think we are and what we think we're capable of and what talent we think we don't have but really do have. I found in interviewing quite a few of the authors for the independent author that many people's talent comes from some kind of healing process, people who have gone through horrible childhoods, people who were bullied, people who have some kind of physical disability that, initially limited what they were able to do, but as they grew up and became adults, they actually found ways to, thrive, notwithstanding whatever perceived or real disabilities they may have. The author, the creativity, the artist, the musician within sometimes needs a little bit of coaxing. And it starts with looking in the mirror and having a conversation with yourself about, who you think you are and what you think you can do. There's a lot of talent out there that's literally untapped because the people who have it, it never dawned on them to try to tap it. So I'm going to hopefully explore some of the artists, musicians, and writers who have gone down that path and who maybe started out in life thinking that they didn't have talent, but they really do. So the new podcast is going to be called Type Tune Tint. Type Tune Tint. Get it? Writing, music, art. So I tried to go for something catchy, something that'll also fit on a nice small graphic. And I think that speaks to my target guests on the show, and hopefully my target audience, that's you, and maybe other people who aren't just writers, but who are musicians and are artists as well. So the independent author will become Type Tune Tint, starting with the next podcast. I hope you'll stay for it. Make sure that when you go to your podcast venue, when you see Type Tune Tint, you don't scratch me out or delete it. We are still going to talk to independent authors, but many more types of artists as well. So thanks for your loyalty and for listening in the last 2 years. And please don't go anyplace and please continue listening. It's a new name, but you're stuck with me as your host, but hopefully a much broader range of guests and subject matter. Thanks very much, and I'll talk to you next time.